Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. My name is Eli. I'll be spending some time with you. Want to first wish everybody Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, everything that you went and did. Hope you enjoyed it. We are getting back on the horse here. I wanted to take some time and kind of step through the thing that everyone's talking about, actually, just what are the Orioles going to do? And so we have all been talking, of course, here at the Warehouse Pod. We've been going through these possibilities. And, I think that the reasonable thing to assume is that it's going to come from the trade market. I don't think that we're going to shell out for, even Shota Imanaga is supposed to make over $100 million at this point. So chances are we are not going to be in the running for any significant free agent. I guess there's the chance of kind of a lower tier like a Stroman or something of that sort. But still think the likeliest avenue, so to speak, is the trade market. So wanted to go ahead here and kind of dive into a potential trade partner. I was originally thinking of making this like a little series and going ahead, and I was going to start with this team, which is the Marlins, and then I was going to step into the Mariners. The Mariners just went ahead and seemingly, signed their fate for the next year by going ahead and taking Robbie Ray, flipping him over to the Giants. They brought back Mitch Haniger, Anthony DeSclafani, and I guess, that says they're probably done trading pitching. DeSclafani is probably going to act as a bit of a swingman for them. Their GM, Jerry DiPoto, actually went ahead and said that he didn't think that there was... or he said, we looked at situations where we traded one of these young arms we have, which of course is who the Orioles would be interested in. And he said, and we didn't like what that looked like. So assuming that the Mariners are off the table, I figure I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the Marlins here. I do think we line up for a couple reasons. Today I'm going to go through kind of that initial thinking, why we do tend to line up with the Marlins, why the Marlins look like, viable partners for us in this, instant dating, roundabout way of looking at which teams line up and who could be compatible, so to speak. So I guess I'll step into it. I'm going to go through 3 pitchers from the Marlins today. I'm going to save 2 more pitchers who probably just deserve a little bit more attention, a little bit more time for the next episode I spend with you guys. And without further ado, let's get into it. I guess just talking in general sense, why we line up with the Marlins. The Marlins last year were 26th in baseball in runs scored. They were last in the National League. Miraculously, they still made it to the playoffs. It's pretty amazing. Their, projected record just based on, their run differential, they should have lost about 9 more games than they did. So, they are obviously going to be in the market for some sort of offense. They also did all of that last year without Jorge Soler, who hit 36 home runs and is on the free agent market and is going to be out of their price range. So we take a look at really positional needs. Obviously they need to fill out this offense, their positional needs. In the outfield, they've got Jazz Chisholm, and he's great. But in the corners, we've got Brian De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez, and Avisaíl Garcia. De La Cruz, and these are all Zips projections that I'm using today. But De La Cruz projected for 1 WAR, Jesus Sanchez for 1.1. Avisaíl Garcia is actually minus 0.2 WAR. So in the corner outfields, they're really, really weak. And you look at us, we've got Kjerstad, we've got Kaiser, we've got Hayes, we've got Santander, we've got all sorts of corner outfield options. And that's not to mention, potentially a Kobe Mayo who could be making that switch out to right field. And, any number of depth. You could dive down to Dylan Beavers. You could look toward a Judd Fabian if you want to do a lower level trade. Fabian can probably handle center, but I digress. In the infield, they've got Jake Berger. They traded for... he's probably going to handle third base. They traded for him at last year's deadline. He does hit well, but quite frankly, he's negative defensive value. So the idea of him being your third baseman, I think, is not ideal. You could slide him to DH. That said, if you put him at DH, obviously Avisail Garcia probably needs to spend more time in the field where he is also negative value. So let's say that Jake Burger is entrenched there. They've got Luis Arias at second base, obviously the only guy, feeding the old style contact, bat to ball, OBP, true leadoff hitter kind of deal. He's at second base, and they've got Josh Bell playing first. I think that, Berger will probably get some time at first. Arias will get some time at first. They'll switch around in and out of the DH role. But this shortstop position, it looks terrible. Dan Szymborski for Fangraphs does these hilarious, like almost portmanteaus of these mashup names. And so they've got John Birdie, Jacob Amaya, and Vidal Brujan, and he went Bertamaya Han, I think is what he said. I closed it, but it took me 3-4 solid minutes of just thinking about it to figure out who Jacob Amaya was. I got the other two, but so across these three guys, they're only projecting to get about 1.7 WAR by Zips across the three of them at shortstop. And John Birdie, if you look at him, he's really just slightly below average as a hitter. He's got no power. He's extremely quick. In fact, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I said, I brought up the possibility of flipping Jorge Mateo to them. And then I said, it's almost a situation where, all the jokes with your mom saying we have food at home. This is almost like we have Jorge Mateo at home. John Birdie is probably slightly worse. Probably, has a little bit less offensive upside. Mateo at least has the shtick that he hits lefties pretty well. Birdie is just he's fine. Yeah, I'm not trying to knock him too much. He's definitely a major league player. He's an everyday guy in a utility role, much like Mateo is. But that is just to illustrate sort of who he is. He's a little bit on the light hitting, but good defense, great base running, John Birdie. But, he's probably the primary piece. Vidal Brujan, they just brought him over from the Rays. Brujan, I don't think has even been in the bigs for a full year at this point. Maybe last year was his full year. But the Rays didn't really trust him. That's why they flipped him in favor of keeping somebody like a Taylor Walls. Jacob Amaya has never done anything special. So, the group is just wholly uninspiring. And so I look at corner outfield and shortstop as probably the two things that we could really slide into in order to provide them some value. So beyond all that, the Orioles do have some trade history. And, under the Elias regime, they're I think they're the most frequent trade partner that Elias has had, as a matter of fact. And I should say that should be taken with a slight grain of salt, because Kim Ng, who just led the Marlins to their first playoffs in 20-some years, is no longer with the team. They tried to give her basically a demotion, which was just kind of ridiculous. So they were trying to instill somebody in front of her and said, we're picking up your side of the mutual option, but by the way, you're going to be reporting to this person. She said no, which good for her. She's too good for that. She should be running an entire team. So this is a different front office coming in, is the point I'm trying to make. So new front office here. We've got the Jonathan VR trade in 2019, after we tried to waive him to get out of a $10 million contract, which was infuriating at the time. Then we got Richard Blyer, and then last year, and by last year I mean 2022. I am recording this in 24, so I need to make the mental adjustment there. But yeah, Tanner Scott and Cole Sulser, I almost said Bo. Tanner Scott and Cole Sulser got moved in 2022. So we do have some recent trade history with them. And we have these positional fits. The Orioles obviously have shortstops and corner outfielders at the wazoo. So you can see why just pure speculative speculatively. I'm struggling with that word. It's not coming out right. But in a speculating sense, the Orioles and Marlins have been linked up in rumors. So taking a step back and actually saying, like, okay, what do the Marlins have? That would be appealing to us. I'd take a look and say, obviously, this Orioles team needs pitching. That's what we're all talking about. I did the Dylan Cease episode. Tyler talked about it with Craig Kimbrell. If we bring in somebody who can start, that pushes Tyler Wells, that pushes DL Hall, maybe Cole Irvin back to the pen, and then your pen is much better set up for this year. Your rotation is better set up for this year. Everybody's happy. So the Marlins rotation is their strength. It is the reason why not only we make sense as a trade partner for them because of the shortstop, corner, outfield, but they make sense as a trade partner for us. So Sandy Alcantara just got Tommy John surgery, and he is out. He was a much bigger contract anyway, so I don't think that the Orioles would have been interested in him. But, he's kind of cool because he's one of the, more old-style aces, the kind of guy who can throw 220 innings in a year and put up really good production the whole way through. Obviously, he won the Cy Young Award in 2022, unless my memory is deceiving me. But so Sandy Alcantara is out for 2024. We will ignore him. Moving on, we've got Jesus Luzardo, who is, came over from the Athletics in the Starling Marte trade a couple years ago. He's phenomenal. I'm going to save him for next episode because he deserves more time. We've got Eury Perez, who, they call him the giraffe because I think he's like 6'8", Glass now, Tyler Wells level of height. He came up last year and flashed some true brilliancy in his short debut. They kept him on an innings limit, sent him back down to AAA for a little bit. He's also going to go next episode. I'm sorry. I do have good things for you today. So the three guys we're going to talk about today are the next three, and that's Edward Cabrera, Braxton Garrett, and Trevor Rogers. And, in talking about these guys, we're not just going to deplete the Marlins rotation here. They do also have Max Meyer, a top prospect coming back from Tommy John surgery. They have AJ Puck, also formerly of the Athletics, who has been talking about wanting to be a starter. He was one of the top starters in college with the University of Florida. You have Ryan Weathers, who came over from San Diego. I see him less as a starter than any of the other names here, but he's been mentioned as a depth piece, sort of, as someone who can stretch himself out. I personally don't see that as much, but, I give credit to people who spend more time thinking about the Marlins, and they say he's some depth. So, so once again, Cabrera, Garrett, Rogers are the three we're going to talk about today. I think that Max Meyer, coming back from Tommy John surgery, I think that he's basically got to be on the field for a little bit and kind of prove out what he's capable of right now before a team will actually take a leap of faith on him like this trade would be. And I think Puck and Weathers, I only mention them for depth as to backfilling the rotation as opposed to anybody that we would really try to target. Those three, Cabrera, Garrett, Rogers. I think I've said that enough. Stepping into it here, I'll start with Trevor Rogers. I'm going to kind of move toward the most exciting one to me. So I'll start with Trevor Rogers. It's kind of interesting because, if you had talked in 2021 and mentioned Trevor Rogers as a trade candidate, I think he would have more value than pretty close to anybody in baseball. He was in his rookie year. He came in second in Rookie of the Year voting to Jonathan India. This was 2021. He had a 2.64 ERA through 133 innings, 28.5% K rate, which is, 5% above average, to an 8.4% walk rate, which is pretty close to average, a little bit high. So he has this incredible season. The whole world looks at this fastball changeup combo. He gets really good extension. And obviously is controllable for the next 5 years. So the Marlins are feeling really good about this, and he just kind of plummets in 2022. Was apparently like a left side lat injury. And you're always like, anytime you get the stuff on your deceleration, I don't know. It's problematic. It takes you a while to sort of trust going full throttle again. And they're just kind of finicky injuries. It's very, very easy to re-aggravate a lat. So in 2022, he only made 23 starts. His ERA shot up to 5.47. His WHIP shot up over 1.5. Then in 2023, problems just kept going. He missed a lot of the year battling through that same lat, actually his other lat as well, and then bicep injuries. So he only ended up starting 4 games. And so you've got this body of work it's this one incredible year, and then it just immediately plummets to bad performance and then has not been on the field. And at this point, he came back for, it was 4 starts at the end of last year, and he looked fine. There was nothing to really have a gripe with, but it's the question of what you're going to get. Is he really over all of that? Hopefully you would think that the offseason is allowing him to obviously get healthy, to build himself back up to full strength. I've got something in my eye for those of you who are on video. So yeah, you hope that the offseason is going to do him some good, but I guess like diving just one level deeper, again, he gets this really great extension. He's a long guy and consistently is above average. There's a 4-seam fastball and a sinker. His best secondary is a changeup. I think one of the best things you can say about him is in 2022, when he struggled, hard hit rates, average exit velo against him still stayed above average. He does not allow hard contact. In the very short sample last year and in 2021, hard hit rates and average exit velo were both, phenomenal for him. He was 70th, 80th percentiles. And then, again, on top of that, the changeup still rates well by measure of Stuff Plus. His fastballs are about average. The sinker slightly above average. With good health, this is somebody that there is reason to think, he could really be something. And if you think that the Orioles do a great job developing changeups, we've seen that with DL Hall, we've seen that with any number of guys, John Means. Left-handed changeups are something that we are good with, and we know how to work with that type of pitcher. I think there's reason to believe that if the Orioles, obviously this is a bit of a longer shot, but if the Orioles go for the value play and do not want to give up a Kobe Mayo or something of that sort, and you trust that you have this guy healthy, obviously you run medicals, you take physical exams after a trade, it's an option. And I think that this is somebody that the Marlins would be more willing to part with because of all those problems, and because of the wealth of talent that they have coming in behind him. The other thing I should note on Trevor Rogers, he's a free agent after 2026, so you get 3 years of him. And obviously, we've talked about lefties in the Camden Yards ballpark. The guys who have the platoon advantage have a gargantuan wall 1,000 miles away in left field that they have to hit it over. So we always like seeing lefties. And yeah, Trevor Rogers is that. He is a lefty. He's got some promise and has shown really, really good performance at the MLB level. So next guy here, Braxton Garrett. Had to scroll down a little bit. So Braxton Garrett, you got a lot more control over him, I guess the first thing. He just went over a full year of service time for the first time. So he'll be a free agent in 2029. You have him through 2028. This was his first full year, and on the surface, the results were great. Really, got to give him credit. He had a great season. He threw just under 160 innings. ERA was in the 3.6s, 1.15 WHIP. This is another lefty. The thing I should say about him, though, is he's very, very much just command above stuff. He throws 6 pitches and only one grades out as even per Stuff Plus. And that's his slider. And the kind of thing about it is like a perfect 100 on Stuff Plus. So it's a perfectly average pitch. So he throws 6 pitches and one of them is average, purely in terms of stuff. So this is clearly a guy who commands the ball well. I kind of like looked at that. So Fangraphs has Stuff Plus, Location Plus, and they kind of combined that into a Pitching Plus metric. And the Location Plus is only about average. So, like what that tells me is that if you're getting really pretty solid results here, and, the actual like location for your pitches is not optimal, the stuff itself is not that great, what that is saying to me is you're just kind of deceptive. You tunnel your pitches well, everything seems to, pop out of the same spot, they maintain the same plane, you're tunneling, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of deception here. And the wide pitch mix clearly benefits him in that sense. He throws 3 fastballs, primarily a sinker, but he's also got a 4-seam and a cutter. And he complements that with that slider, which is slightly, which is average. I shouldn't even say slightly above average. Slider, changeup, and curveball. So I guess like the knocks on him, like I said, he's not a stuff guy. His fastball averages 90.5 miles an hour, so he's very much not, this spin rate, like shoving 4-seam fastballs down your throat at the letters. He's not that guy. And quite frankly, he's really bad at limiting hard contact. What I talked about with Trevor Rogers up top, that is not Braxton Garrett. His average exit velo was in the 18th percentile. His hard hit rate was in the 8th percentile. So people hit the ball very hard against this guy. And so you're probably sitting here and you're like, okay, so you told me he's got this 3.66 ERA, low whip, but like you haven't said a single good thing since. And so I'm here to like bring it back around. Don't worry. We're going to start talking good things. So he strikes out people at like a league average clip. Despite the like seemingly non-existent ability to like really make the ball dance in any kind of useful way. He has like surprisingly good chase rates, and this is kind of what I alluded to with deception earlier. He gets chases on like 30% of pitches outside the zone, which is in the 76th percentile across the league. So like top quarter of the league in inducing a hitter to, swing at something they're not supposed to. And that's like a really, really valuable ability. And I think something that, probably these like Stuff Plus, I just hit my monitor. The people on video, this is my first time doing video, so you got to bear with me. The people listening in podcast form are probably just tired of me saying all this stuff about the video people. But so yeah, 76th percentile in chase rates. When you do not have the ability to blow somebody away and, you're not throwing 102 miles an hour in the middle of the zone that can just beat somebody with pure stuff, you need to have that ability. You need to have the ability to live on the edge and then make that stuff enticing enough and deceptive enough to still induce a swing, when on a pitch that hitter doesn't like. And so the chase rates and the, and what I was talking about with the deception, like this all kind of comes together in one thing that I think is really, really, really telling about him. He induces ground balls at a 49% clip. So, one of every 2 balls hit for him is on the ground. And this is like, as far as starting pitchers go, this is really pretty elite. It's the 80th percentile. I told you about the hard contact, of course, but his average launch angle against him was only 7.4 degrees. And I guess for reference, like under 10 degrees coming off the bat is going to be a ground ball. So people hit the ball very, very hard, but they're beating it into the ground. And that is, it's a method. I'm not going to say it's like exactly what I would want pitcher. I would prefer they just limit hard contact and, guys are rolling over balls as opposed to hitting them 114 miles an hour into the ground. But, like if you are going to get hard, if you are going to get hit hard, I cannot believe I said that. If you are going to get hit hard, you go ahead and you find a way to make sure that hitters cannot, square up the ball properly to get under it, to elevate and really do damage the way that they are trying to. I think beyond that ground ball rate, the other thing that needs to be said about him, he walks guys at a 4.4% clip. This is in the 97th percentile of pitchers across the league. Simply does not walk guys. It's really like elite. And, despite the hard contact, this is what keeps his whip relatively low. It was a 1.15, which is, better than league average whip. 4.4% walk rate. He simply does not give up free bases, and he clearly stays out of the heart of the plate. And I think that's kind of like, it's a very fine balance to walk, because as a soft thrower, as somebody without a ton of stuff, right, you need to, you live and die by inducing these swings on pitches that hitters do not want to hit. But at the same time, if you do not make them convincing enough, if they do not tunnel well, if they do not, seem enticing at the point when the hitter is making the decision to swing, you're going to walk a ton of guys. It will, trail off the plate and they'll just spit on it. So I think it's really telling that he has found something in some way, shape, or form that does, at least deceive hitters to the point where they cannot recognize a pitch as not what they want until it's too late. I saw, in accordance with Baseball Savant, they do a run value kind of by heart of the plate, by the shadow, which is just a couple inches off the edges, by like chase pitches, and by waste pitches. And on the shadows of the plate, he had like plus 24 runs, which is really elite. So he's very, very good at staying out of the middle and very, very good at staying close enough to be enticing. So I guess, like, to kind of sum it up, I was looking beyond the simple ERA, of course. FIP really likes him fielding independent pitching. FIP is looking at, home runs, walks, and strikeouts. And as somebody who, despite a little bit of hard contact, is somebody who has a 4.4% walk rate, your FIP is going to be good. FIP is actually like right in line. I think it was like 3.68, and his actual ERA was 3.66. But there are other estimators like Baseball Savant's xERA, expected ERA, and that had him at almost a full run higher at a 4.58. So, by some estimators, there definitely is room for regression. But at the same time, the Orioles are not bringing this guy in to be the number one pitcher. If that's what, if Braxton Garrett is the guy you're trading for, you're bringing him in because he's cost controlled, and he will limit some hard contact and eat some innings for you. And once again, Braxton Garrett's got a full 5 years of control remaining, so all the time in the world. Edward Cabrera is our next and final guy. So, like Braxton Garrett, he'll be a free agent in 2029. You have a full 5 years of control, and that's about the last way that Edward Cabrera is anything like Braxton Garrett. So last year on the surface, he threw 99 innings, had a 4.24 ERA, and a 1.45 whip. So whip was way up there. However, 4 of the 5 pitches he throws are above average by Stuff Plus. He throws a four-seam, a sinker, a slider, a curveball, and a changeup. And the changeup is the only thing that Stuff Plus doesn't like. But the fascinating thing about him is, if you ever watch an Edward Cabrera start, you will notice that the pitch he throws most often is his changeup. And if you're a Pitching Ninja fan, and I'm actually wearing my Pitching Ninja shirt today, but if you're a Pitching Ninja fan, the reason Edward Cabrera makes Pitching Ninja is because he's throwing these insane, ridiculous, demonic changeups. His changeup averages, and once again, this is a changeup, averages 92.9 miles an hour. His average changeup is faster than Braxton Garrett's fastball by over 2 miles an hour. It's insane. 92.9. And so, yeah, Stuff Plus does not like this pitch. I'll get into that a tiny bit later. But Stuff Plus doesn't like it, but by StatCast's run value, it was incredibly valuable. I think his off-speed, let me pull it up. Off-speed run value was in the 95th percentile this year. This thing is like just ridiculous. It's been up to 96 miles an hour as a changeup, which is just like, I don't know. It sounds like a joke. I was a college pitcher and I was like an 86 to 88 guy. And like the concept of me throwing like one of my really good fastballs, and this is just 10 miles an hour harder. It's like 96 mile an hour changeup. Anyway, so looking at that run value metric that StatCast puts out, so among pitchers who faced as many hitters as he did, and I'm turning this into a rate because he only threw 99 innings, like I told you guys, so I didn't want to look at it. Run value is something that accrues over time, and so if you I think Logan Webb led the league, and that's because in terms of changeups, and that's because he threw 200 plus innings and has one of the best changeups. So, he's got the combo of time to accrue as well as having a great pitch. So I set the limit at pitchers who faced as many hitters as Edward Cabrera did this year. And I looked at, okay, what is the rate at which his changeup is actually accruing these stats? And among those pitchers, the only people who accrued, run value at a higher rate than Edward Cabrera were Devin Williams, Merrill Kelly, Logan Webb, and Michael Wacha. 4 guys. That's it. And this run value rate is just in front of a guy some of you might know, Grayson Rodriguez. So this changeup, per pitch on a pitch basis is a more valuable pitch than Grayson Rodriguez's changeup. The pitch that all of us, go to sleep and dream about at night. The thing that, we all have been lauding for years as, oh my God, this guy is coming up and he's got this insane, some people do like his slider more. I like the changeup more. So, just in front of Grayson Rodriguez's changeup. And then I guess the other thing I should just say is that of those 5 names I listed, Williams, Kelly, Webb, Wacha, and Grayson Rodriguez, Edward Cabrera gets a better whiff rate, actually just swing and miss on his changeup than everybody but Devin Williams. And Devin Williams is the only person in the entire world who throws a 3,000 RPM changeup. It's got the nickname the Airbender because it looks so fantastical the way it moves. So, better whiff rate than Logan Webb's changeup, than Merrill Kelly's, who obviously had a phenomenal year. We saw him in the playoffs. Then Wacha, who, we all kind of laugh at him because it's the Orioles are going to sign somebody like a Michael Wacha, and that's all disappointing. But the fact of the matter is he was great last year, and the changeup is one of the primary reasons. And then again, he's just in front of Grayson Rodriguez on the rate of accruing value from this pitch. So really pretty elite changeup. And so to talk about why Stuff Plus doesn't like it as much, Stuff Plus has it at let me look back real quick, at only an 89. And Stuff Plus is normalized to 100, so 100 is a perfectly average changeup. So, why Stuff Plus doesn't really like this pitch, just to kind of round out. Well, let me take a step back. The reason I like this pitch, I told you it's 93 miles an hour, and it's moving 16 and a half inches to his arm side. It's really, really elite level sinker movement and arm side movement. And this thing is 93 touching 96 as a changeup. It's insane. But I think that the reason Stuff Plus might not like it is it's almost like a different fastball for him. So his average fastball on the 4-seam and on the sinker is about at 96. They are distinct shapes, but it's almost there is a spectrum from the 4-seam to the changeup, and the sinker is kind of in the middle of it in terms of movement. So the changeup and the sinker are really pretty similar in terms of movement. There's about 5 inches of vertical and like 3 inches of horizontal, and only the 3 mile an hour difference. And I guess the largest thing, you want to create a tiny bit more separation than that for the sake of just deception. A hitter's ability to make an adjustment mid-pitch is finite. So if you can create a little bit more separation, they have a larger adjustment to make once they realize that they guessed wrong. Between the sinker and the changeup, you don't have quite as much separation, and so there's less ground to cover in order to make up for that. I think that's like the biggest complaint you can make. I also think that Stuff Plus, as a model, you build out across the data set that you have, and the data set for 93 mile an hour changeups is not large because nobody else does it. So you're a model to be effective and be most like representative for the larger body of work in front of you. So when we have Dean Kramer throwing 84, 85 mile an hour changeups, that's like more like league average, and that's what you want the Stuff Plus model to really diagnose properly, I guess is the thing to say. So I think this is kind of there are some complaints on separation from the fastball, but at the same time, this guy throws it 30% of the time. It's clearly effective. It does not get hit hard. And he's really fascinating in that way. And so I guess just carrying on in like the good ways, he strikes out over 27% of the batters he faces. He is very, very good in that sense. He gets whiffs. He does not allow a lot of hard contact. I don't know who on earth would be able to square up 93 miles an hour moving, a foot and a quarter to the arm side. But his ground ball rate is over 55% as a matter of fact. So, well, actually, when I said he's not like Braxton Garrett in any way, I guess I kind of lied on that. Garrett's was 49%, but both like pretty elite ground ball guys. That is something that we've seen across the Marlins. Sandy Alcantara is obviously that same thing. But yeah, so really, really phenomenal ground ball rate. And that's about like all of the good stuff I've given you. The reason he pitched 99 innings last year is he was actually optioned in August. And you kind of question like, what could possibly make all of this phenomenal stuff go bad? And it's that he walks over 15% of batters faced. So, like 1 in every 6 batters the guy faces gets walked. And this was actually like kind of fun to research because it's rare that you find people who are like, Baseball Savant has these, sliding scales from 1 to 100. And it's very rare that you find people all the way at the edge. But this walk rate is in the first percentile of MLB pitchers. I mean, it's really bad. Like, among pitchers with 90 innings last year, only Michael Kopech at 15.4% beat is a relative term. It was worse than Edward Cabrera's 15.2%. And the next was Blake Snell, who obviously led the league in walks, and his was almost a full 2% lower at like 13.3. So really, really bad walk rates. The guy throws so hard. He has like this disgusting stuff. It's a super unique repertoire with this changeup. But the command was so bad that he actually got optioned in August. And to be quite frank, he really like wasn't that phenomenal when he got back. The command was not particularly better. So it's kind of like you can dream on Edward Cabrera as much as anybody on earth. Like the stuff is there. I told you that his changeup was his only pitch by Stuff Plus that was below average. And then I proceeded to tell you why the changeup was so effective. And then you stop and you take a step back and it's like, all right, well, we got 2 fastballs that are above average. We've got a slider that's above average, and we've got a curveball that's above average. He's got this phenomenal repertoire. He's just got to find the plate. And so you can really you can dream on this guy as much as you can anybody on earth. And you'd have, a full 5 years to work with him. Again, this was his first year in the bigs. You get 5 years of this guy. So there's plenty of reason to just love it and dream on it. But obviously you gotta find a way to link up in a trade. I am getting a little bit long on time here. I guess, I can say something pretty quick on sort of the cost of these guys. I think that the first thing I'll say is the reason we're hearing all these exorbitant asks coming out of the White Sox camp is because, I guess the cost of pitching is so through the roof right now. Nobody expected Imanaga to get $100 million. Nobody expected, I don't know. Nobody expected Yamamoto to get 325. People were projecting him for 220, and that was going to be huge. It's really like the cost of pitching is so through the roof that I guess these teams who, the White Sox who are holding on to a Dylan Cease, the Marlins who are holding on to all these young arms, like controllable starting pitching is becoming, it's not becoming, it is, and it's just like increasing the gap to second place as the most valuable single thing that you can have. Because there's such a scarcity of like really truly effective starting pitchers at cost controlled rates. So to talk about any of these guys, I think there's a chance that I could give you like a trade proposal, and as the market keeps progressing forward in this year, people start to panic at the end, and you have 5 bidders all going for Edward Cabrera, that the trade proposal I give could be absolutely terrible and so far off of the reality. I can try to project, and I think, somebody like a Trevor Rogers could probably be had, like maybe for something like an Austin Hayes, kind of a complimentary MLB piece, or if you want to go prospects and full years of control, someone like a Connor Norby. Trevor Rogers will be the cheapest, and that's probably the floor. But once you start talking about Garrett, I think that there are a lot of reasons that his value should not be as high as it is, or as high as some people say it is, mostly because of that hard contact that he does allow. But again, you're getting 5 years of control, somebody with these minuscule walk rates, 3.6 ERA. He ate up 160 innings, which is as much as anybody in the game nowadays. Really steady, reliable guy, and doesn't walk people, doesn't give up free bags, and seemingly, despite the hard contact, doesn't really get damaged. So you talk about him, and yeah, you definitely need more. That's probably on the lines of like you're sending probably a Cowser and maybe Joey Ortiz, or one of your backup infielders, an Urias or something of that sort, and you get them in the fold. And I do think that Cabrera, purely on the arm talent alone, would cost the most. And, tack on a little bit from what I had just said. I think these proposals are a little bit fruitless, just because the market, I think, has changed so significantly from where it was even a year ago. So I'll end it there. Next time, I definitely do want to talk through Eury Perez and Jesus Luzardo, because they're just fun to dig into. They have so much talent. In terms of just stuff alone, and Luzardo in particular, like really reined it in last year. He was somebody that the Athletics were dreaming on, and couldn't get walk rates down. He was Edward Cabrera at the beginning of his career, and they have obviously made it work for him. Last year he was pitching like an ace. So excited to get into those two guys. And we'll maybe circle up. I might try to put together, I guess, some more effective, like, relative values of these guys to give you guys some reference for that. But for this time, looks like it's been about 45 minutes, so I'm going to head out. Definitely, like we always say, please do, if you're liking the content we're putting out, please do subscribe. Please do rate our podcast, give us some comments. You can email us at thewarehousepod@gmail.com. You can come find us on X/Twitter. You can yeah, just reach out. We would love to talk. We obviously enjoy baseball. That's why we're here. So once again, this is Elijah, and this has been the Warehouse Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.